because classically when I was researching for this episode and finding out more about Leeds and Leeds uni life, I naturally came across LeedsFess. I knew it existed because, you know, York has a similar thing of like a confessions page where people can submit things anonymously. And then randomly, for some reason, I mean, I think it's amazing that it happened. But it seemed to just unleash this like torrent of people also sharing these stories. But one person shared a story about an unfortunate situation that they'd had going through Hyde Park. And it basically resulted in like 12 or 15 people also submitting these posts talking about experiences that they've had. Just to sort of like kick it off. So these are stories about sexual assault is what I'm basically sort of getting at. Because I've spoken to people before about these sorts of situations. What is your personal first off opinion about like using these confession pages as an avenue to talk about these experiences, or is it just a case of like every situation's unique and perhaps this person is just looking for an option to talk about?
I think it's difficult. I mean, I've never actually used these pages and I don't know a great deal about them because obviously I think LeedsFess is more for people at the Uni of Leeds. But I definitely think in this situation, if it's helpful for people to be able to come forward maybe anonymously if they don't want to put their name to it, then I see that as a good thing. I think that's a helpful resource, but obviously it depends, and as you said, everybody's situation probably is different, but yeah.
Have you experienced or witnessed any sort of behaviour like that whilst at uni, whilst in Leeds?
No, not directly. I think you do have to have your wits about you, and as you mentioned, Hyde Park is like a known area within Leeds, I think, where you probably wouldn't walk through it at night on your own, whether you're a male or a female, because I don't really know why, I don't know what goes on in there, but it was one of the very first things my flatmate said to me. He was older than me, he was about 23, 24, and he'd been in Leeds for a few years, and he was like, if you ever need walking back from anywhere that means you have to pass through Hyde Park, you ring me because you don't walk through there alone. And the same goes because I wouldn't want to walk through it alone. And I was like, oh, okay, and I just didn't ask any more questions. But then a couple of months after living there, somebody got stabbed really near to where my flat was in Hyde Park, because I lived kind of at the back of Hyde Park. And you just know that it's like a dodgy area, but in terms of sexual assault, I've never witnessed in any or like known of anybody that's been involved in any, but I do know that it's just like an unwritten rule that you would not go there by yourself because it's scary and it's dangerous, I think.
It does look a bit dodgy, like naturally anyway.
It does, yeah. I think my only experience in there that's been like that was we went for bonfire night. They do a big bonfire display because obviously it's a big open area. And after the show, people started throwing fireworks at people, like literally at people in the crowd, and we were like, pleasant. Oh my god, and everybody started running and like dispersing, and this group of people were obviously like, I don't know, high or drunk, I'm not too sure, and they thought it was hilarious, but they were literally setting fire to like bits of ground where people were standing, and we were like, we need to just go, let's go. And that was frightening enough, and obviously that wasn't, you know, anything directly at me, but it was like the only time I've been in Hyde Park in the dark. Something like that did happen, so
yeah. I mean Leeds is like full of so many different people, and quite a lot of them can just be morons. Like
100%. And I think often maybe they're not students, they might live there, or there's a lot of like gang culture in those kind of areas as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time they probably aren't students. Like
I don't think they are students, but
because I'd hope at least. I mean, my next question was going to be along the lines of, does sort of these universities tackle these issues? But my hope at least was that if the university became aware of things like that they would at least try and tackle it.
You would hope so.
But it does seem to be the case that these probably aren't students, and there are a lot of like, you know, rough council housing and apartment housing, and there's probably that situation where it's like they don't have much else to do, so why not just...
absolutely, yeah. I think that issue occurs in every city, and there's always antisocial behaviour, but I do think there seems to be quite a big problem with those like outskirts of Leeds areas, because it's a huge city, it's an industrial city, and it's got a lot of like suburbs that are like that, and I think it does create an issue when then you bring so many students into the city that aren't from those areas, and you have situations where they're meeting each other. It can be dangerous. Because
of your sort of social media aspect and background and stuff, do people approach you about these issues? Does anyone come forward to you and
yeah, occasionally, not very often. Obviously, I think that before I moved to Leeds, I didn't have a very Leeds-based audience, but then once I was there, I did have a couple of like charities and stuff reach out and be like, oh, we'd really appreciate it if you could share this, like we're a charity set up by students, running for other students for things like that, for like, I don't know, women and women's shelters, but then also for like student mental health and things like that. And of course, usually it's so easy to just share them onto Instagram, and like, although I'm not getting anything directly from it and it's not helping me, it is helping people that watch me and helping my viewers, which is obviously amazing and the exact kind of thing I want to be sharing. So it was useful for things like that, I think.
Yeah. Do you think from your experience that the unis are trying to tackle it in Leeds, or do you think it's more of a deep-rooted issue in the actual sort of society? Do you think it goes more to like sort of policy, government level, local parliament level, rather than...
I think it's a mixture of both, because obviously if it is students, then that's the university issue, I think, but if it's not, then yeah. And I think it's hard because obviously there are 2 huge universities in Leeds, and I would hope that they are doing stuff regarding, I don't know, sexual assault, any form of anything like that. But firsthand, I don't know if they are, because obviously I was never involved and I didn't study there, but I would hope that they do definitely speak about it and, you know, just make people aware of what's going on.
I got my mind made up. I'm living in this world trying to raise up. Never gave in, never gave up. The times I was down had to stay up.